Hello. This is Sims United. We kind of trolled Twitter with my announcement. I put, Star Trekking across the universe. But this is Star Wars. So let's get started back with the story. Make sure it's on story mode. Last time I was playing it,
Doing our final test, Vanguard. Spread out and keep watch.
last time I did the stream, it crashed. No, I don't want to know how to drift. But a little bit's been happening since I streamed last on Twitch. I've been working with more machine learning. I got it to work better. Last time I was talking about how I was trying to do training of small models. Models are I don't have any idea what they mean. But so what models are is it's kind of like it's a collection of parameters. It's kind of like the predictions or the statistics of what each response will have. So with machine learning, you pretty much try to predict every scenario that can happen with the inputted text, and figure out what's the most probable response to the question. And so the more parameters you have, kind of I don't know why that was good. What did the drifting accomplish? But so it's machine learning is kind of essentially just predicting, like one of the things, like you say, if you flip a coin, it's a 50-50 chance it'd be heads or tails. But with machine learning, what you could do is you would set up a camera and watch, thousands of people flip a coin. And it would analyze it, because even though it's 50-50, you wouldn't get, if you flip it 100 times, you wouldn't get 50 heads and 50 tails. Because a lot of people, things that people don't realize with statistics is a lot of times they kind of think with statistics, 50%. And like there's kind of like a karma effect where it's like, the last thing I did will influence the next thing I did. So I got, tails 10 times before I should get heads 10 times after. And so with statistics, it's 50-50, but it's you have a 50% chance each time individually. What you got before has no bearing on your odds later. And that's kind of where people get in trouble with gambling, because they say, I have, 1 in 4 chance of winning, but that's every time. It doesn't stack up. There's no like karmic, I got, 3 losses, so I have to get a new win. And so with machine learning, what you would do is you set up a camera and it watches, thousands of people flipping a coin, and it knows their result. So you say, okay, this person flipped, it was heads, that one. And so with all that data, the machine will look at all that, and it will try to figure out what the odds are of that coin flipping to be heads or tails. And so you don't really know what data it's looking at in the camera. It could be judging, hand twitches or size of the hand, or it could be looking at how fast the hand moves. It might not even be looking at the hand. It might be looking at like the arm or something. So you don't really know how it's learning, but it's trying to come up with a calculation based on its visual input of what the result will be, because it knows the result because you told it. So it will just keep crunching numbers as hard as it can. And so it will do, we measure it really by millions, but now we're getting into billions of parameters that they test for. And so it will know, like, okay, this person's going to, once it's done training, that's what you call it when it's learning, you're training the model. Now, once it's done, finished training, it will be pretty accurate, where it's like, okay, it will watch somebody flip a coin, and then you'll ask the computer which one did they do before you look at the coin, and it will kind of be accurate. It will be like 60 or 70% accurate, which is pretty good for a guess. That's much better than it makes the odds a little bit better than 50%. But again, what it's calculating is like there's a slight better chance that that it will be heads than tails based on the visual input it found. It helps to not shoot at the same ship. So what I'm doing, what I was talking about, I was doing the time before, was I'm training it on smaller pieces of data, where I'm giving it a book. I'm having it analyze that. So when I first started training, I got into doing environments for programming. Usually I don't do it just because I wasn't really sure how to do it. But so what it is you set up your environment for programming, and it's specific to like that one kind of setup that you're doing. So instead of using like the newest software, it's like, okay, I need this very specific version of Python. And that program will use that specific version of Python, and then all the dependencies you can install, it's like, okay, I need this very specific dependency, but only for this. And so it allows you to do that without messing up your entire normal setup. So I did that. I made an environment for Python. I think it was like 2.7. It was very specific. And then I used TensorFlow. I had to use TensorFlow. It was like 1.5. And then I did some training on that using GPT-2. And I tried to do, you need like the base kind of AI model so it can figure out what it's predicting. So it has like a base knowledge of what it's so it has a base knowledge of what it's asking. It's not just getting a brand new book. that it has no idea what the context is. So there's a little bit of context, but I started off with 345 parameter model, and it took it took 5 hours, and it only got to like 1,000 steps, and I was like, that's weird. I would thought that's faster because I have a beefier graphics card. It's the 360. It's the NVIDIA 360. I don't know if it's TI, but we might have to do this again. I don't like that we didn't succeed. But so I have 12 gigabytes of GPU memory, and which is specifically why I got the 360, because I needed the more gigabytes, but I also needed it to be affordable. When I got it, it was about 370. And so I was like, this is weird that, it's been running for 5 hours and only got, 1,000 steps. That's like 1,000 parameters. And so I spent I was up till 3 a.m. last night trying to figure it out. So it turned out it wasn't using the graphics card, it was using the CPU. And with machine learning, it has to do billions of calculations, but they're very small calculations, and it has to do them all at the same time, where that's not very good for the CPU, because the CPU is able to do, oh, hello, decoy temp, thanks for rating, and so you have to do thousands of calculations. I guess we'll. So it has to do thousands. So CPUs are good for doing really complex calculations and operations and things like comparing, is this true or that true? But it can only do it really one at a time, and that's why we kind of had to develop multi-cores, because with more cores it can do different things at the same time. And so with CPUs, what they do is time sharing. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do 2 seconds focusing on this problem, then I'm going to move to that problem. So it looks like CPUs can do a lot at the same time, but they're really just switching back and forth very quickly between each task. And so GPU processing is kind of the opposite, where it's very difficult for a GPU to do compare things like, oh, this is true, that's true. But it can do billions of calculations almost simultaneously, because when you think about it, it's with graphics, it's processing for HD. HD is roughly 1.6 million pixels, so each pixel is something it has to calculate. And so with GPU, with CUDA, it's cool because it allows for a little bit more complex calculations, and GPUs are tuned to do 4K HD. They're tuned to process 8 million threads at a time relatively quickly. And so that's why a lot of people are using machine learning is using the GPU, because it has to do thousands of calculations, see if they work, and kind of just throw it away if it doesn't work, and then start over. And so it was really weird that the program I was learning wasn't wasn't working that fast, and so I found out it wasn't even using the GPU; it was using the CPU. So I spent from like 11 to 3 a.m. trying to figure it out, and I did eventually. But thanks again for Deco Evo Tango for rating. And let's see. Here, I'll follow you. Do, do, do. And yeah, so it ended up. It was such a headache. So the problem was TensorFlow, and usually I use for machine learning. What is it called? I use PyTorch. So that one's worked better, but TensorFlow was being a butt. It was like, oh, you have to install this specific version, and we no longer support Windows natively. You have to use the WSL, which is like Windows system with Linux. And I was like, oh, so I did that, but my hard drive was running out of space. So then I had to figure out how to transfer the Linux version to a different drive, and it ended up blowing up the WSL, the Windows system, Linux, whatever. It blew it up. So then I was like, okay, I have to go back. And I ended up using an old version of TensorFlow. Anyway, so overnight it ran. It did like 80,000 um, 80,000 steps. And so I tested it out. I asked it some questions, and the answers I got back made no sense. The book I gave it to analyze was the court hearings about the Titanic and why it failed. And so I asked it, what is the Titanic? And it gave me this long spiel, but none of it was really relevant. But some of the text, it was a paragraph of text. Some of the text was like, the Titanic sank, blah, 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 because of these people and stuff. So it was it knew it was about the Titanic, but didn't really know how to describe it. So I started it, and it continues where it's left off. So I'll update about the process of that. But so it is getting to the point where it's responding. It's just its responses make no sense. And so then as it continues on to process, it might make more sense. And that's kind of the thing with the machine learning is it has to keep processing. And then you get to the point where this is the best it's ever going to be in its responses. But there will become a point where if it's processing too much, it will just get worse and worse. So you have to constantly test it to see if it already reached the best it can be, or if it just gets to a point where it has no idea what it's talking about. The Empire. Let's see, what are we going to fly?
You'll be the new pilot. Sergeant Wade, chief mechanic, head of the hangar crew. I'll see the appeal in flying myself, but I've been working on ties since they rolled off the assembly line. Lothar and Dea has had a complete inspection and overhaul of the kitchen and roof-sprung doors. On my orders, every tie in his hanging's been serviced and test-proofed. I count the rivets myself. The rest are yours. I've got to say, I want to know how you and Tiger coped. No shields or life support. There's an awful plating between you and space. Smooth character. Never met a TIE pilot who backed down from any challenge. Choose or not. I've prepared your starfighter to match the latest.
Man, so
Got a preferred
that was my adventures for the night.
just say the word. Your TIE fighter's ready. Good flying.
You're the new arrival. I'm Havina Von Reg. Titan can always use another pilot, so long as you're good at killing rebels. We're going right into their territory, Hosley and the Tribe. We'll give those scum just a taste of what it was like at Endor. I was there, you know, when the rebellion murdered our emperor. Half my squad died trying to defend him. Captain Kara understands. She doesn't lecture me about justifiable force like my other commanders. She knows all I need is a target. Politics are for admirals. I keep it simple. Always shoot to kill. Mess with the squadron and you mess with me. But do your job and I'll have your back. Later.
Later. So he has a helmet on top of his helmet. Oh, so I used to say, oh, I'm going to become a consultant. I was taking care of my grandmother for like 7 years before she passed away. But so a lot of it I had to take her around in a wheelchair and stuff. She could walk short distances, but then she would do this thing where we'd be walking and she's like, okay, that's it, I can't walk any further. And I was like, well, we have to walk back. So I started doing this thing where we just take the wheelchair, she walks as long as she could, and then that was it. It was like, okay, we take the wheelchair from there. And so there was a lot of accessible, handicap accessible stuff where it's like, oh, this is supposed to be an accessible ramp, but it's like no one can get through that. So my sister was looking at these apartments, and one of them that was shown, it wasn't for her, it was just to show what it would look like, what the one layout would look like for a different apartment she would get. But it happened to be like the handicap accessible one. And so she was saying like, oh, there's a 3-inch there's the ramp and then a 3-inch gap into the doorway, not gap but raised thing. And I was like, I've seen those all the time. So I used to say like, oh, I'll become a consultant to like an architectural firm on like why their designs don't work and everything. But I was like, you know what, I'm gonna become not a consultant. I'm going to work for the government and become like the inspector. But why do I have to inspect the steps? Yeah, some of this, well, a lot of it is ridiculous. Where they say, "Oh, this is handicap accessible," and it's like it's totally not. But yeah, I heard the UK is terrible for, like wheelchair accessibility and things like that.
Squadron, on me. Imperial fighters, divert course and leave this system immediately, or you will be destroyed.
That's right.
Remember, we must be swift and precise. They'll scramble fighters quickly.
No doubt they'll reinforce from the surface as well as the station.
Rebels arrive. Don't leave.
Sounds like a good strategy to me.
Titan, approach and eliminate the outpost's outer defenses.
Missile defense systems activated. Work them out to clear a path to the station. Enemy gun a lock. We can shoot down their salvos.
Shoot down their saddles.
That's what I like to see.
Where's the other one? Yay.
Don't take their cannons head on unless you have a death wish. Keep it up. Enemy is locking on. They locked on.
Good work. Our path is clear. Advance on the outpost. What? They breached our missile defenses. Scramble fighters, take down those ties.
I wish I could see the panic inside that station right now. We should take out the shield generator. Without it, the turbo lasers are vulnerable.
Rebel starfighters inbound.
Watch your backs.
On your way. Titan 3 is on their shield generator. Keep it up. The station shields are down. Focus fire on the outpost's turbo lasers.
Turbo
Clear
lasers.
landing zone for our extraction shuttle. Evacuate the transports. Get the cargo out of here.
I'm seeing a rebel transport ship fleeing the outpost. That's a high-value target, and we won't let it escape. Eliminate the rebel transport.
Great work. Enemy on your back.
Where is the transport?
Being followed. We're with you.
Ah, there it is. Da, da, da.
Friend scum. Information and ready.
There we go.
This side's clear. Attack what remains.
That wasn't it either. Allies. We'll try that one. Still not showing.
Enemy tailing me. They're on me. Not past the top of that hill. Clear here. Finish off the rest. I'm on your wing.
Oh, do I have to destroy all the transports? I misunderstood.
Titan 3. Show no mercy. Without remorse.
I'm here. Let's go. We let the enemy transport escape. Not ideal.
Outpost defenses are critically low. Keep it up.
Got a tail. The outpost is defenseless.
Titan, this is Shuttle Gladius. Inbound for extraction. We read you, Gladius. Titan will rendezvous at these coordinates. Joining up. Thin the herd if you have to.
Do, 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 do. I got a lot to do this week. I've been doing a lot of droning, taking droning video and stuff. So I've just been like collecting it. I've edited one part, and it was like 4 hours of drone footage. I usually put that on Twitch. I live stream it as a rerun, and then I have music going to it. So I have to actually render that. And what I do is I just render the video background, and then the music is actually kind of just stitched in live through OBS.
I'm in position.
Do, 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 do. So I'm excited to work on that. The reason why I haven't been working so much on video editing and photo editing is because I've been doing all these all-nighters where I'm doing astrophotography. So I take pictures of the stars and everything. I haven't really published too much of what I've done, but each night I'm getting like it's 3 photos per camera, and I use 3 cameras, so I get 3 or 4. So I get 12 photos each night.
Closing in on you, Titan Squadron. We'll keep you safe, Gladius. Let's get you to the outpost's landing platform. Affirmative, Squadron Leader.
But it's not just, you take one photo and then you're done. It's that you need really long exposures, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And part of the problem is when you're doing, 30 or 40 minute exposures, part of the problem with doing 30 or 40 minute exposures is that if you let the camera sensor stay open for 40 minutes and a cloud rolls through, then your shot's ruined. And where I live, the clouds come in really fast, but they also leave pretty fast. So it can be completely clear, and then there's clouds, and then and not. So what I do is stacking, and so it takes a whole bunch of like 1 second or 2 second photos, and then the computer sandwiches them together, and it looks through all the photos and picks the strongest signal that there is. Hey, Power Plaid, thanks for following. And it will sandwich them together and kind of get the best pixels, and so it allows you to if there's a cloud or anything, you can like not put that photo in. And then I use a program called Deep Sky Stacker, and it will actually analyze the photos and align it so all the stars are perfectly aligned in each photo. But probably the problem with astrophotography is the Earth is spinning, and you don't really think about it so much in the night, but during the day, the sun's going across the sky, and it's like, oh, it's noon and it's directly overhead, but you don't really realize how fast the Earth is spinning. Like, it's spinning fast. So when you're taking photos of the stars, you can take maybe a 2-second photo, depending on if you're using a wide angle or telephoto, before the stars will actually start to blur. And so they call those star trails, because it's just a motion blur streak, because that's how fast the Earth is rotating. And so I have this special attachment for the cameras. It's a sky glider, and it will actually kind of rotate. It's called right ascension. So it moves it moves counterclockwise, and so that follows the stars you aim at. So it's not really it's not really computer controlled. You can attach computers to it, but it's more just kind of like it knows the basic rotation of the Earth. And so it kind of goes the opposite direction. And so to set it up is relatively easy. You just have to aim it at the you have to aim it at Polaris, and then it will rotate, and then you put your camera on top. I have it so that there's one camera on top and one on the bottom, and they act as a counterweight. So it's a lot. I shoot maybe in text here. I shoot maybe each one photo is like 2,000 photos that are squished into one. So it's about every night it's about like 700 gigabytes of photos because they have to be raw. You're not shooting JPEG. So it takes a long time to process that. It takes like 7 hours per. No, it takes like 5 hours per photo. So I am planning on to process that. So I'm going to be doing creative streams where I edit those photos, but I'm trying to stack them all at once.
Get Agent Thorne back to the Overseer.
Well, that hurt.
Do, 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 do.
More like that.
They're blocking us in.
Just keep moving.
More fighters. It's probably best not to ram them.
They sent some frigate posters.
Keep it moving. Evade those lasers.
Blasted rebels. Corvette, watch out.
I'm hit.
Where are we escorting this guy to?
Another frigate.
They're all over me.
I'm hit. Seems they've locked on.
Do, do.
Enemy locked on.
Agent Thorne, you're in the clear.
You have my thanks, Titan Squadron. And my respect.
Respect.
Radius, jump into light speed.
Just grazed me.
We did it. Squadron, reach the carrier and load up.
Let's leave this wretched system.
Wretched.
More rebel ships inbound. Enemy ships are hitting our Gozanti.
That was way out in the middle of nowhere.
Nice work, Titan 3. You're officially part of the squadron now.
I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I I have this thing called the Arctic air. I live in Michigan, so doesn't get really hot here. Like maybe it will get to 90, but it rarely ever gets to 100. But what we have here is humidity. Now it's not as bad as the South, like Carolina and stuff, but we have pretty much like almost like every 5 feet we have a lake. So there's all this water. It's really humid, and we get a ton of mosquitoes. And anyway, so it gets really humid. So you're sweating to death. I I live part time in California. I live part time in California, and so it will get up to like 105, and it's like that is no issue. That's not hot because there's no humidity there. Like I can wear a hoodie in 102. I really don't care. But then, but yeah, so I was surfing YouTube, and they were like, oh, there was this one ad, and it was so like stupid. And so it was like, oh, there was this guy who was working in mechanical engineering, and he created this way to make, a very efficient air conditioner. And he showed it to his teacher, and his teacher was impressed. So him and his teacher in college, they went to the no, that's not right. His teacher wasn't impressed. They expelled him because his machine was too good. And so then he tried to go to the, air conditioning companies, and they all, laughed at him. So he finally got, um, sponsorship and stuff, and he built his own thing, and that was the Arctic Air. And you can look them up on Amazon. They're like, I got mine because I thought the commercial was so funny, and I said I'm not getting that. And then Amazon was like, oh, 50% off, and I said I might as well try it. And so I tried it. And so what you do is you put water in it, and you can put water and ice cubes in it, and then it blows the air at you. And so it works. I mean, like, it feels really cold, and it did help last year. But so I had to go get some. I got an ice pack and put it in the Arctic air. So it might be a little bit noisy, but it it's getting hot today. Trigger happy. Anyone else to talk to? Nope. Her gloves look way too big.
will have survived the crucible and come out stronger. On to bigger things. The captain has a personal stake in Project Starhawk, a vendetta with Lyndon James. Take it from me, nothing motivates like betrayal. I've seen too many good pilots. Friends turned traitor. A good man of their misery. There's always more out there. Eden Versia, Erica Quell, Lyndon James. They're not just traitors, they're loose ends. Problems
Loose
solved once
ends.
the war is done. We should go.
Let's go.
The Time Reaper's a special suit made for utility in squadron support. If the enemy sees one, they know they're in trouble. With this load, it's built to disable enemy fighters with ion lasers. I've also equipped jamming to keep you off enemy radars, and tactical shields to protect allied cars.
Deploying.
All this wreckage. What happened here?
This viewport is tiny.
Amos is bloodthirsty. He's baited the rebels into pointless fleet battles over December.
And lost several destroyers by the look of it. At least his recklessness allows us to stay hidden. Stay together and keep your distance. The convoy can't know we're tracking them.
Yes, sir. Titan 3's radar jammer will make it harder for the enemy to track you. Use it wisely. We're off their radar. Let's use those debris clusters as cover and close in on the convoy. But don't boost your engines. It puts the entire mission at risk to fly so brash.
Smart.
You've been spotted.
Mission fail. I was following. It's the thing I hate. I've done it before. Where I lock onto someone I think I'm supposed to be following, but they're just flying information. So we're just going around in circles following each other. So that's what happened there.
All this wreckage. What happened here? Captain Amos is bloodthirsty. He's baited the rebels into pointless fleet battles over December.
And lost several destroyers by the look of it. At least his recklessness allows us to stay hidden. Stay together and keep your distance. The convoy can't know we're tracking them.
Yes, sir.
did we learn?
When the moment is right, not simply because we can.
We're so busy thinking about whether you could, you never stopped to think whether you should.
The Star Destroyer Tormentor is emerging from hyperspace near the debris field.
Oh no. You can't be serious. Captain Amos, what is the meaning of this?
You're letting our enemy escape, Captain Carroll. I will not show the same mercy. Fire the missiles.
We can't lose this convoy. Titan, shoot down the Tormentor's missiles. Captain Amos, you are compromising a delicate mission.
Delicate. This is war. Snuffing out this new republic is the only mission.
Titan 3, shoot down the missiles. That colossal idiot.
Convoys alerted to our presence. No way we'll track their jump now. Strange feeling saving rebels.
Captain Amos, this is foolish. The Tormentor is severely damaged.
It's still capable of destroying a few rebel ships. Just look at the wreckage around you.
I see TIE fighters out there. Shattered, broken. Yours, I assume.
Every victory has its price.
Just praise me. Good shot.
Stay focused. Stop that scatter convoy. Saving the rebels from Imperial missiles. If the enemy thinks we're saviors now, it won't last long. Sharpshooting. Captain Amos must be cursing your name.
The Tormentor is firing another missile volley.
We'll take them down. That missile made contact. Practice makes perfect. Keep it up, Titan 3. We need this. That's the last of the missiles.
This is dumb. Not the game, but this imperialist can't follow orders. I mean, you kind of knew it was going to happen. Because they kept like saying, oh, he's so trigger happy, before. Do, do, do. Ionize.
Excellent. I'm deploying lander shuttles to board them and seize their nav data.
We'll keep the shuttle safe.
See that you do. Thanks to Captain Amos. Physically retrieving the nav data is our last chance at finding Project Starhawk.
If this was in Halo, they would have wiped their nav data already because of the Cole protocol.
Shuttle's reached. Let's move. Shuttle taking fire.
That shield gotta help. Shuttle team, prepare to board. Seize the data. Find out where these ships were headed. Captain Amos, you are losing this battle.
Imperial might will always prevail. Not many rebels left. Wipe them out, Titan.
Shield the shuttle, Titan 3.
The boarding party has reached the transport. Stand by.
I implore you to retreat.
You my spotless record.
You are outgunned, sir.
Because you shot down my missiles.
Fine. I wash my hands of this, Captain Amos.
Yeah, that's kind of why the Emperor doesn't really win.
I have it under control.
They're all competing with each other. Oh, and they're all disorganized.
Target down. Thank me later. And with that, the starfighters are gone. For now. Overseer ready to receive shuttle team. Titan 3, keep them safe. Titan, the rebels have scrambled another fighter squadron. They're truly desperate now.
Finish off their fighters. Titan 3, defend the shuttles. You're clear.
That wasn't necessary. Information ready.
Let's get a shield on that shuttle.
A shield for you.
Shield on you now.
I have your back.
Thanks.
Where is an enemy?
You're off their radar for now.
Got one. I'm in position.
I'll put that rebel out of their misery. I'm on your wing. I'm on your wing.
Just kind of chilling around, cruising.
The Overseer can handle the shuttle from here, Titan.
Good work. Data is safely aboard the Overseer. Decrypting it now. Captain, the Tormentor is taking heavy fire. Its destruction is imminent.
That fool. Titan, return to the Tormentor and cover its retreat.
Yes, ma'am.
Pity the fool.
Call off your squadron. I don't need her help.
Then you're prepared to retreat?
Never.
You will not survive this assault, Captain Amos.
Watch me.
Was it a waste? The dude was an idiot. He lost a whole ship for no reason.
Titan, we've recovered the sector coordinates of the Starport dockyards, but the rest of the data banks are empty.
Engineers must have wiped the rest of the cabin name off Blue Arcana.
We're so close. I think the Inmos deserves to go down on his ship. Clearing the sector at least narrows our search. But you can't hide forever. Titan, eliminate the convoy. Let Wisdom know we're coming for him.
We're gonna end it here. I want to thank everyone for coming out. This was an exciting stream. We got rated. We got followers. I'll see everyone later. I'll try to be on tomorrow with more Squadron. Bye bye.